We're going to move up now to, if we look at map C, we're going to move up to the north, of course, because the center of gravity of the battle in Gaza has moved to the Jabaliya camp. That's Jabaliya city. The camp is to the south. And Jabaliya, you can tell by that map there, this map, thanks Maxwell, you can tell the density. Jabaliya is a continuous population center all the way into Gaza. If you were driving through it, you wouldn't know when you left Jabaliya and you entered Gaza city. So this is what has been under siege, put under siege by the Israelis. They have cut across Beit Hanun. There you see the road that cuts just south of Beit Hanun. They've cut across that road and cut off Beit Lahia in the northwest, and Beit Hanun in the northeast are now cut off. And as Nora reported in the news, they're also cutting off Gaza City from Jabaliya and telling people to leave. But they're telling people to leave Jabaliya by going through IDF checkpoints. And IDF checkpoints are the place that everybody who's been following this conflict, especially the people who live in Gaza, know that those checkpoints are the place where you get captured for no reason, get taken into a prison camp in Israel, get tortured, raped, murdered, and then dumped at the gate, out your dead body or your living body, or you're forced to walk naked back to Gaza. All of the brutal scenes we've seen of those prison camps, they all come together in that checkpoint. When you're saying go through this checkpoint to a Palestinian, they're not going through those checkpoints. The UN said less than 100 people have left northern Gaza. There's 400,000 people, according to the UN, still in northern Gaza. They've been there for the whole war, and they're not leaving. They're displaced within the areas, within the neighborhoods of Jabaliya. They're displaced. But this idea that the IDF can seal off Jabaliya and somehow that traps the fighters inside is a fundamental misunderstanding of the way the fighters fight. They fight in their regional brigades. They don't go from Jabaliya. They don't flee Jabaliya when there's a fight. They do the opposite. When the civilians move out of the way, the fighters move in and fight without civilians in the area. And that's what we've seen on hundreds of videos that we've been watching throughout this entire battle. So what Israel is doing by sealing off Jabaliya, that's for the starvation. That fits into Layla's reporting. That fits into Nora's news reporting. It's using starvation as a weapon because the fighters aren't the ones who are leaving. So it's just it's targeting civilians, and in this targeting of civilians, starving them for the past 2 weeks. The starvation began on October 1st and is gone. And there was some talk that there was some small number of trucks got in today, but otherwise it's been 2 weeks of nothing. They're attempting to starve out the fighters, to starve out the civilians, because they can't win the war. And we've known that since October 8th, when Georgia Island of the general's plan a year ago said that we need to starve them out. And that's been the plan. But the fighters are still there. Jabaliya, there was 13 Yasin operations, 3 close quarters battles, 10 improvised explosive devices. Those are Shawaz, Radia, television, anti-personnel. There was a thermobaric warhead strike that didn't make this cut for the show. It'll be on next week. A very detailed ambush that we're going to spend some time on, and a sniper operation. And there was also 3 operations in Beit Lahia against troops that were cutting off Beit Lahia. So yeah, third invasion of Jabaliya. Jabaliya, just to say, I've covered the other 2 invasions really in depth. And so people probably know these things, but the first Intifada began in Jabaliya. Jabaliya is the center of the resistance. Jabaliya, from the presses from the north and the way the settlements were set up inside the Gaza Strip. Jabaliya and Shujaiya that you can see just to the east of Gaza City. Those are the 2, those are the epicenter of resistance. And that is historically the case. The armed struggle began in Jabaliya and Shujaiya. And so the fighters in Jabaliya are formidable fighters. And I explained on the show last week via the IDF why they were going back into Jabaliya, and it was because the hospitals, schools, and shelters were being used, and aid distribution centers were being used and organized by Hamas. And so since you saw me last, 350 people were killed in Jabaliya, and they were killed at 3 sites: shelters, aid distribution sites, and hospital courtyards. So exactly as we predicted, exactly as the Israeli military set it up, the massacres took place in those 3 places that we talked about last week. So it's disgusting, it's criminal, and the courage that you saw from Abu Bakr is the courage of the civilians in Jabaliya as well, all throughout Gaza during this time. We're going to talk about the military part of it, but obviously Abu Bakr's report early on gives you a good sense of the courage of the population fighting in the same trench as the militants. So let's look at number 10. This is a 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐿 operation. This was the first operation of the week. You see a good shot there of the Yassin tandem charge. And then this guy, he comes over to the camera, and the camera, he says, "Film this." And the guy says, "What for?" And he says, "Film this. I want a picture of it." And he sprays perfume on it, and he kisses it. And the guy says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I've got big plans for this one." And he then after spraying it with perfume and kissing it, he finds this Merkava. The cameraman is playing it safe on this one, but the fighter's out in the street, hits the Merkava. As you can see there, it's burning. We took the audio track out of that, but you can see the bullets flying through that. What is it? Netting. I think it's an aid distribution bag that's being used. It's like a canvas bag. So there's intense fire in this scene, on this track that is taken out. But kissing their Yassin, going to battle. And on this next one, number 11, I left the audio in so people can listen what it sounds like to live in Jabaliya right now and what these fighters are fighting in. These fighters are not coming out and taking pot shots. They're in the middle of an active battle space. That's where all the civilians are as well. The fighter's going to come out here and fire on the Merkava that's down the road. You're going to see the cameraman move when he comes out. He steps out into the street and fires here. You can see the Merkava's shown. Again, the cameraman's playing it safe on this one because, as you can hear, the Israeli positions are right there, and they're just spraying mounted machine gun fire throughout the camp. And the fighters return to their base safely. That's what you're watching here. Fighters returning to their base safely. So number 12 is in Beit Lahia. There was and this is an Ashkaret troop carrier. This is not a Namr, so they're using an older troop carrier here. It might be because it's an engineering unit. These are the armored personnel carriers of the Second Intifada. They were replaced in the mid-20s, mid-2010s, 2012 to 2015, they were mostly replaced. But if we just loop that run back again, you can see that these fighters are in positions in Beit Lahia. We haven't heard from Beit Lahia in months. And this armored vehicle rolls through, and watch them pick the back door, the weakest spot on it. Direct hit on the back door from a few feet away. There's no trophy active protection system. No report of casualties on that one, but it sure looks like casualties on that one. That troop carrier is based on a T-55 tank chassis, a Soviet tank chassis. So you can see the rear door there. It's exposed. On the Namr, there's 2 ammo storage compartments that come out that protect the door in a better way than on these older armored personnel carriers. So that's likely a devastating hit, depending on how many soldiers how many crew and soldiers were in that armored vehicle. So that's Beit Lahia. They got in on the action this week. There was 3 other operations in Beit Lahia of a similar type. And here we go. This is the Jabaliya ambush. This is a detailed 3-stage ambush that we're going to watch a couple times here because there's a lot of detail to show you. on this operation. It's targeting a logistics convoy. There's three parts to it. The resupply route is going to be targeted. Once it's targeted, they're going to encircle the target, and then they're going to cut off the reinforcements. And you can see on this map here, this is the troop leading procedures that we've seen throughout this the war in Gaza from each side. Here we see tactical drone use, again, for intelligence, surveillance, and target acquisition and reconnaissance. And that's what they're doing. Here we have the fighter moving one of three. There's a Radia, anti-personnel IED, and a Shawad being placed. Here's the wire. You can see the wire running to the anti-personnel. He's rigging that up on the supply route. So there's two routes, and 𝐤𝐿 is predicting with the second route, the route of the reinforcements. People probably recognize that as the Shawad. That's the EFP, explosively formed penetrator, and you can see how he puts it in a bag to disguise it. Multiple cameras on this one, getting us a good look at the destruction. It's just, I don't know, sometimes you just notice it. It's just criminal. It's criminal. Here he's reading, in his position, he's reading Dr. Mahmoud al-Zahar, who is a leading, a founder of Hamas and the leading political figure, thinker, historian, and that's a novel that he wrote about the liberation of Palestine. And so the fighters are reading it in position. And these two guys are talking amongst themselves, also waiting in position, holding their Yassins, and talking. I'll read you what this guy says on the next loop around when we get a bit more time to dig into it. But I'm just going to show you the positions right now. So these guys are in position. The two Yassin shooters, we saw the three IEDs getting placed. These are the Yassin shooters that are going to come in the third part of the ambush to cut off the, they're the second part to encircle the target that's hit first. And here they're showing armored movement. So there's tanks coming through here, and they're passing on those tanks because the tanks are not part of this operation. What you see here is the operation: logistics convoy, logistics supply convoy, and you can count the vehicles. There's 16 vehicles in this convoy. They say advance here, advance forward for your defeat, and that's the detonation of the convoy. So that's part one, detonated of the convoy. And then the vehicles that were detonated were jeeps. And so the Israeli soldiers are outside of the jeeps at this point. And then you get the two Yassin shooters who are encircling them. You're saying he's got a tandem 85 here that he's firing. 𝐤𝐿 indicated it as a 105. But those are soldiers there that are out of their Hummers, because their Hummers got hit. And then this guy's going to fire. He's firing on the reinforcements. So the reinforcements are coming to bail out the guys that got blown up in the jeeps. And he gets one of the that's one of the cleanest shots we've seen of a Yassin strike on an armored vehicle. And because it's a closed circuit camera, the cameraman doesn't have to peel away because it's just in a fixed position. So the tank comes to save that other tank, and he hits the Shawad that we saw. And this guy right here, we saw him before setting it up, and he's going to detonate that on the tank that comes in to reinforce. So you hit the jeeps in the convoy, you stop the convoy, the whole convoy becomes targets, and then you encircle that target, and you come in with the Yassins, and then you predict, and they rightly predict the route that the Israeli military will take to come and save those guys, and they hit those guys with. So this is what it is. This says the ambush. This is the Jabaliya camp ambush. The three stages are resupply target, encircle the target, and cut off the reinforcements. And they're going to show you the drone. So they're showing you on paper here. This is the troop leading procedures, showing each commander what their responsibilities are, and then they'll go to their people and brief their people on what to do. This is showing you the kill zone, the ambush zone, and then in the top left, that's the supply route. So they're going to come down from that supply route. And look at this guy. He's the opposite of a soldier in a window. Look at how delicately he moves undercover to plant that explosive. This guy waits till it's clear and does the same thing, puts it out on the road, and this is what got the Jeep. And the Israeli military was trying to figure out what set it off. Was it a tripwire, or were there fighters? And then this video came out and showed them exactly what happened, because 3 soldiers were killed in this, including an officer, at least 3 soldiers, including an officer, and several more seriously wounded in this operation. So that's planting it on the resupply route. Fighters in their position, reading their leaders' books while they wait. We've seen this also all through the war. You can see the sophistication and the detail in this operation. And then, so this guy reads a part from the Quran that says, we have placed, like, it's so applicable from the Quran, we have placed before them and behind them a barrier and disguised it so they do not see. And then he addresses Gallant. He says, I have a message for the vile Gallant. I will remind you of your words at the beginning of the battle when you said, I see the downfall of Hamas. Well, we see the downfall of Israel, and the world too will witness you, not only your defeat, but your complete destruction. We will stomp you. And he's holding his North Korean F7 RPG, which is a fragmentation RPG that he fires into the disabled vehicles. So fighters talking in their positions, verses from the Quran that speak perfectly to what we are seeing. This says advance forward, advance so you may be defeated, and because we have prepared for you an ambush of death. Then it's the IEDs detonated. They let the 2 Merkavas pass because they're not part of the plan. This is a preset plan to carry out to the most effect. So that detonated that convoy of 16 vehicles. Then you have the Yasin Archer come in here and fire on the destroyed Hummers. And then the tanks are going to come in to try to save the Hummers. They predict the route that they're going to come in, and they do. They pick it correctly, and both the SKUDS are in position to do damage. And you can see at the beginning when he's drawing the procedures, he's telling them how many meters from the road, how many meters the Yasin shooter should be from the tank. He's telling them all of that in that drawing. And this is the SKUDS, the last part of the operation. And just one more thing to show, well, he detonates it here. I just wanted to bring you this because it took them a couple days to get this video out, but they put an initial report out. This is their initial field report. So you've watched the operation now, but this field report came out. There's the medevac, and the medevac is so close that you can basically see the guy's hair color of the pilot. But they don't touch it. So this is what Qassam's field report was when there was no video, there was no other reporting that this operation existed. During a compound ambush east of Jabaliya camp, Al-Qassam Mujahideen surrounded a mechanized infantry company belonging to the occupation army consisting of 12 military vehicles and a truckload of soldiers in an ambush area in advance, so a pre-planned ambush. Immediately upon the forces' arrival to the area, a SKUDS device was detonated in the truck loaded with soldiers, and an explosive device was detonated, a radia, on the Hummers in the pocket, targeting another pocket with the tandem missile, which is what we just saw, the Tandem 85, after which our Mujahideen advanced towards the ambush area and finished off the remaining soldiers with their RPGs before going back to the house and setting off the anti-personnel device that killed and wounded multiple soldiers. So their field report is exactly is perfect fidelity to what you saw. If anything, it's undercounting because we counted 16 vehicles, they counted a dozen, and so these field reports are honest. The reporting from the resistance is honest. It's the same in Hezbollah. We've seen the exact same thing. In fact, Hezbollah led the way with this kind of honest reporting And we saw it in Lebanon almost taken too far during the assassinations, when Hezbollah was acknowledging their assassinated leaders right away after the pager event and the walkie-talkie event. But these field reports by the resistance are accurate. They tell you the truth. They're not exaggerating. The event happened, and then the next day you get the you get the video, and then you get the Israeli report came in between, and the Israelis were trying to figure it out because we saw the wire running on that one IED out to the road. So the Israelis were like, was it a tripwire, or were there soldiers there beside it? That's what their investigation is trying to understand. And so these are the ways you can put these pieces together to verify what you're looking at. And every time that happens, every time we verify these videos in overlapping ways of vetting, invariably the field reports are accurate about what happened. They don't include anything that didn't happen in the field reports, and that's consistent across the board. This one was a particularly interesting example of that, so I wanted to bring you that. So you can see, again, this is the convoy moving in. So these fighters, not only are they not leaving to move to different battle spaces, they're in this battle space preparing pre-planned ambushes that are immediately ready to carry out once the Israeli military gets there. So you're sealing people in, or trying to get them to go north, but with having checkpoints so you can stop the fighters from moving. That's not who's moving. The fighters are not moving. They're staying in their base and they're reading Mahmoud al-Zahar. And they've been there since May, the last time Israel invaded. They've been there the whole summer reading that Zahar book and being in their positions. And we've seen that, and that's what the fighters have said. They talk about it all the time, about how they've waited in their positions for months. And we have many examples of it from all of the Palestinian wars over the last 20 years. How long the fighters were waiting in the tunnel before the Naho Oz operation, weeks in the tunnel. How long the fighters in Rafah waited before the May invasion of Rafah came. And this is the Jabaliya fighters who haven't been fighting since May because the military left in May, and they set up these operations. The fighters are still there. This was not cleared. There was not operational control over this area. They just destroy and devastate the area, and the resistance immediately comes with an operation like this. This is one of the most sophisticated and well-executed ambushes of the entire war. The fighters are getting better at executing this, and the fighters didn't come from Rafah to execute this ambush. They stayed in Jabaliya. They're still in Jabaliya. They're not going to leave Jabaliya. So Jabaliya camp ambush, that was a remarkable operation. I just wanted to bring you Abu Ubaida's message, because Abu Ubaida gave a message to and thanks to Ibrahim Al-Madoun for this translation. But he says, we say today to our fighting brothers in Hezbollah and Lebanon, that we have confidence in your strength and might in inflicting massive painful losses on the Zionist enemy, as the martyr Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah pledged in his well-known great stances. As we have exhausted this troubled army in Gaza for a year, and after its humiliating defeat on October 7th, we have diminished a significant portion of its ground capabilities and killed hundreds of its so-called elite forces, engaging face-to-face with its soldiers, its tanks, its planes, tanks, and intelligence availing them nothing. We are confident that you will complete your mission with determination, skill, and competence if the enemy dares to commit foolish acts on the land of mighty Lebanon. So we saw Nasrallah sending a message to Qassam earlier in the war about this. And so this was Abu Ubaida's video speech from October 7th, just last week. And I wanted to just bring you that before we set up Lebanon. So that is the resistance report from Gaza.